Hey guys, this is Vo. So I'm going to show you my little JLA Avengers collection. The first time I've heard about it, it was obviously in the defunct original 1980 version where the JLA meets Avengers. So this is the original number 6 comics interview, which features the iconic cover. And then this is a reprint of the comics interview special edition. So if you're going to find them, they are very similar looking, but one of them is square bound, and then this is just the regular magazine size. But yeah, so this is the first time I heard about JLA versus Avengers was through these comics interview. And you know, at the time it was very exciting. You found out later that obviously this never happened. And everybody refers to this image as the, you know, supposedly defunct cover of the original JLA versus Avenger, but when in fact it's actually a comics interview cover, which obviously is like this. Anyway, so first time I heard about it was in these, and then you found out that it didn't happen because of several reasons. George Perez, in this interview, blamed Jim Shooter, and at the time he thought Jim Shooter was the person that was preventing this from happening. So he, as a result of the fallout of this, he actually signed an exclusive contract with DC Comics, and so he hadn't been to Marvel in a very, very long time until Infinity Gauntlet in 1991. But then he kind of had to bail out because he actually was doing War of the Gods at the same time, and he already took the money for War of the Gods, so he actually ended up bailing out on Infinity Gauntlet. And as you know, Infinity Gauntlet became beloved, and people, you know, there's the Avengers movie Endgame that everybody loves, but War of the Gods, not so much. So anyway, so yeah, this first exposure of JLA versus Avengers. Many years pass, and yeah, there was a rumbling of a you know, a new JLA versus Avengers, and but prior to this, actually 2 years prior to this, there was a groundwork that was laid where George Perez actually knew it was going to happen, that he kind of put a clause in his exclusive contract with CrossGen Comics that if this were to happen, that he could take you know, take off from CrossGen and draw JLA versus Avenger. This is a project that George has always wanted to do, and so yeah, so leading up to it, there were all kind of magazines. So here's Wizard magazine, talking about JLA versus Avengers, giant preview 2022. It actually came out in 2003, so I don't know. Sketch comics talking about JLA versus Avenger, or Sketch, and then Pittsburgh Comics Con talking about you know, these are all promotional artwork that would later be printed in the thing. Here's Comic Book Marketplace number 86, which featured this iconic artwork of you know, the Avengers and JLA. I actually have another copy. I probably picked one of them up really cheap. And then we got like Wizard World program book featuring you know, the two publisher fighting out. All right, so anyway, the original collection here is they're in 4 issues. Here's the first comic. Actually, I have a couple of these. So here's another copy. And so I have this one that's actually signed by all 3 creators. Actually, this is Tom Brevoort, George Perez, and I wonder if that's Tom Smith's signature. So I think I might be actually missing Kirk Busiek. But this is fine. I mean, this is a lot of signatures, right? So here's issue number 2. Now, if you notice one thing, so the first issue is called JLA versus Avengers, The second issue is called Avengers versus JLA. Now, this is a problem for people who are trying to do alphabetical order. It doesn't make any sense, and thanks to Marvel and DC, they could not come to terms to picking one titles. So Marvel wanted Avengers versus JLA, and then DC wanted JLA versus Avengers. So to compromise, they would do one title. All the odd titles would be DC, and all the even titles would be Marvel. And it doesn't make any sense when you put them in order. So here's the cover of number 3. Actually, I have a couple of these. Now this cover actually was the cover that ended up hospitalizing George Perez. He had spent many days drawing this, and when he was done, he actually ended up getting some kind of tetanus on his hand, and he was hospitalized, and then the doctor wouldn't allow him to draw, and so almost a year, the fourth issue came out, delayed quite a while, but it finally came out, and it's no thanks to the cover of number 3, which broke his hand. That's why number 4 took so long to come out. And I think by that time when it came out, I was kind of almost over it. Alright, so these are kind of mini comics. They're not the full-size comic. They're kind of like smaller size, and they're basically published in India, and they're very cheap. They're like a 25 RS. I don't know how much that is in rubles or whatever, but it's cheap. So we got all 4 issues here, and they're published by Gotham Comics in India. So these are German version, as you can see, JLA versus Raka. So this is the regular cover, and then we also have a variant cover. So this is the variant cover. And I believe these you can only buy at the open house in 2004. So it must have been some kind of convention for or open house or whatever. I don't live in Germany, but I got a copy, so that's really cool. They're very similar to the U.S. version, obviously, but German. You know, JLA did Raka. Now Germany actually is smart. They just basically stuck with JLA Raka instead of Raka JLA on the second issue, because they're not competing with themselves. Anyway, Panini is the publisher, and here is the variant cover to number 2. Where Superman is being hit with the Thor hammer. So the variant cover, yeah, this is actually pretty cool. It's from the interior of the comic. Alright, here's number 3, and here's the variant number 3. Not that great. I really dislike this variant cover. Really, just blah. It's kind of... So this is an online variant, so you can only buy this on Panini's website. And then I have the last issue. I don't have a variant cover for number 4. I believe it was kind of hard to get, or I think by the 4th issue I kind of lost a lot of steam and interest in JLA versus Avenger. I'm very glad it was finished, and I'm very glad to have the whole story, but waiting a year for the 4th issue really killed me. Alright, so this is actually, I don't have the other issues, number 1, 2, or 4, but I picked this up, and it's actually a French edition by Semic Comics. And yeah, I mean, if I can find more foreign comics, I definitely want to pick them up, but this was the only copy I could find for a reasonable price and for whatever shipping it was. But yeah, what's cool about this is actually a little biography of George in this book. It's all in French. I can't read it, but I mean, I can show you what it looks like. So let's see, towards the end here, you have a little Jimmy's Wolf, George Perez, and then yeah, so it's actually kind of cool. It prints some artwork in tiny little squares, and there's a little sidebar about Crisis on Infinite Earths over here, so it's kind of cool. These are the French edition of it, which I do have 1 or 2 issues. I don't have the whole set, but I mean, I think I'm good. I have the American version, and you know, I can't read French, so whatever. All right. So it's been like 17 years, and Marvel and DC still have not kissed and made up since JLA versus Avengers. So the last thing they've released together was this kind of like oversized JLA versus Avenger, kind of like omnibus size book. Not omnibus size, more like a absolute size. And these are very big. And of all the oversized absolute editions I have, this is the smallest in terms of content. I think this, and no, even the Dark Knight, you know, absolute was a little bigger because it actually included the Strikes Back, which is not a great book by Frank Miller. Okay, but what's kind of nice about these, so that's the slipcase, and so it collects the 4-issue JLA versus Avengers, but in a very nice oversized art book bound, and new colors by Tom Smith here. And I mean, like, these pages are so massive, which you really need to really enjoy George's artwork. Very highly detailed and very nice. Now, what's kind of nice also is that it includes the first, I don't know, like 12 pages of the original JLA versus Avengers, which was never published. So now, for the first time, you get to see the oh, there's some Neil Adams stuff in here. Alright, so yeah, so in 1983, so the original pencils for it. Some of these are better than others. This is actually nicer than, say, this, which is kind of like been kind of scanned. It looks like the sources really aren't quite there, but I think they did the best they could. But yeah, so you can see the all the pages that was ultimately was scrapped. I believe Rob Liefeld actually ended up buying all these pages. And so yeah, so why didn't the original worked out? So yeah, so according to George, he says that Jim Shooter didn't want it, and then later on when you read interviews with Jim Shooter, he said that DC just wanted to print money and they didn't care about the story. So Jim Shooter wanted them to get it right, wanted them, you know, he had to approve the story, and he didn't approve some of these pages that was drawn and kind of silly, he thought, and so he was in truth he was the one that was preventing it, but he said out of principle that he wanted a really good story and all that stuff. He didn't just want what DC was offering, which is basically just trying to cash in the money, and they don't care about the comics or the characters. But yeah, that's both sides of the story. I think George has long forgiven Jim Shooter, so it's all, you know, water under the bridge. But yeah, but I'm glad, you know, the 2002 or 2003 version happened. So yeah, so if you're interested, if you know, in this issue, get it on this absolute size version if you can. I do not believe they're ever going to release these on digital because both Marvel and DC would have to come to terms as far as agreeing on the splits and all that stuff. And really, at the time when this was published, digital really wasn't even in the contract. So this book was very successful. I mean, it made everybody money. George made so much money from selling the original artwork, getting paid by Marvel and DC, but getting bonuses for overselling their projections. He made so much money. He ended up buying a brand new car for his wife in cash. Like, he just took a suitcase of money, went to a car dealership and just bought a brand new car. And that's how much money that they made on this book. Now, that's just George. Everybody else also made a lot of money. So Tom Smith, Kirk Busiek, Marvel and DC, the editors at the time, everybody made a lot of money off of this book. And rightly so, though. It's a really great, fun story. Yeah, I wish they would reprint this, or some kind of, maybe for the 20th anniversary, maybe reissued it in a deluxe edition or something. But anyway, hope you enjoy that.